We are now live. All right,
How you
welcome
doing?
everyone to the AP Dojo. My name is Ben Dunn, and this is my partner in crime, Steve O. He's one of the editors at Anodic Press. Anodic Press is a comic book company established in 1985, celebrating our 41st year in operation. And I am the creator of such comics as Ninja High School. And of course, I'm also the creator of Tomorrow Man, which is running now on Kickstarter. So I'm hoping that you'll check it out and support me a backer. So
It's funded, right?
it is fully funded. So there's no worry about it coming out. But of course, I want to make Alicio Nocerino as much money as I possibly can, because he worked very hard on this series. He deserves, as much as he possibly can. And if it goes well, he may even consider doing Tomorrow Man as a regular series. And that's what I'm hoping for. So
The artwork in that thing is amazing.
yes,
Yeah.
he definitely has a penchant for drawing classic superhero comics, which is kind of sorely missing these days in
hmm
comic books. Back in the days when in the 90s where everything was extreme.
It's very extreme. This one's really extreme, but it
I
isn't.
hope Alicia will bring back that extremeness to comics.
We'll bring extreme back. So
Absolutely.
he. So I was looking through the first couple of issues. So I don't know if it's something you want to send out like the day after the Kickstarter, because it is going to Alessio Italian's his first language,
Mhm.
and it's going to need some editing. And I really want to do the editing because I really like Alessio. I like his artwork. He's a nice guy. So we're going to really knuckle down and make it as good a read as it is good to look at. It might take another week or two though after the Kickstarter ends to get to it. But
Well, while we're at it, why don't we just take a look at the project? Might as well just see what we
you got
can.
some artwork to show. Do you have some artwork for me?
Yes, indeed. Let's see here. Share. All right. All right. So this is the Tomorrow Man campaign. Let's go ahead and play the video.
Hello, friends. I'm Tomorrow Man, the greatest superhero of all time, from the pages of Ninja High School. Now he returns, as he faces his greatest challenge ever, the one known as Mistero. Is he friend or foe? Find out in this 80-page, all-new graphic novel. Created by Ben Dunn. Story and art by Alessio Nocerino. Be a backer today.
Wow. We are 60 backers strong. Let's take a look at this campaign. This is a piece that was done for the original Tomorrow Man series back in the 90s.
Let me go. Hold on that for a minute. I have something to say about that artwork.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you know this, but my friends who are listening in from the 2000 AD side of things, the guy who painted that is now a very well-known colorist for 2000 AD.
Wow.
His name is John Charles. He's been working regularly. He's done Sinister Dexter. I believe he's done Judge Dredd. He has his own book called Techno Freak that he's done over there. He's a really nice guy, and he's a very talented colorist.
Well, he definitely, back in the day, he definitely showed his chops. He made the character actually look amazing.
Yeah, that cover stands the test of time. That's for sure.
It's a beautiful piece. And then here's a little factoid sheet of the history of Tomorrow Man. Tomorrow Man was created in 1989. He's an old character. So he's been around a long time. He's been one of the cornerstone characters of the AP Superverse, And here's some fantastic artwork by Alessio. He definitely has, I would almost say, like a Bart Sears look to it. Lots of definitely superhero physiques.
Oh yeah,
And
those abs have abs.
Oh yeah, and it features a lot of well-known golden age superheroes in the mix. You got Black Cat, the Black Terror, and many and Airboy, and many others.
All the public domains. Wow.
Well, no longer public domain. They are part of the Superverse now.
So go back to the Black Cat picture. That's what people want to see.
There you go. Yeah.
There you go.
That's a different design change, though.
Yeah, I know.
You definitely made a design change on that one.
Well, now it's Alessio's Black Cat. So.
Oh yeah, it's more of a modern update version of, but you can still tell. Now wait a minute, Black Cat wasn't blonde, was she? This may be Black Cat. This may be another character.
So the colorist,
Black Cat.
The colorist is French, so maybe he didn't know.
It's possible. Maybe we can change it in post.
The colorist is really good too.
See, the Black Cat's got red hair, so I think that may be either a different version of Black Cat or a new version of Black Cat.
Or maybe it's like the evil Black Cat. I don't know. Well, you know what? We'll have to read the story.
You get a free poster by the indomitable Kelsey Shannon.
Somebody's seen that Rocketeer poster.
Yes, he made it sort of a retro style poster. It looks like a Time magazine cover almost. Yeah.
Wait, no, I'm serious. Have you seen the Rocketeer poster that's based on?
No, I haven't.
I'll send it to you.
I'm going to take your word for it.
All right.
I'll take your word for it.
All right.
And then, so if you love classic superhero comics, it takes you back to the 90s where things were extreme, then hopefully you'll be a backer today, and support comics like this. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So let's get into today's topic. So recently, I'm going to see if I can find the article. And apparently we are talking about manga speculation, and whether this is a real thing or is it a fad. All right, so this is going to be on Yahoo.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to share the screen. If you'll just hold on just a second. All right.
Make sure you don't have those other tabs up on the screen.
Let's see here. Let me see.
So while you're doing that, I'll chill for our other book, Shaman King. So it's in the stores now. The first one you just told me behind the scenes that issues 2 and 3 are at the warehouse. So people who order them will be getting them, and good old Dave's gonna. People have seen the first one and read the little plug that he got from Rich Johnston. I guess some people are starting to speculate on it, and you couldn't speculate on a nicer guy. So Shaman Kane travels through space with Shaman Jane and his ghost sidekick, and the quirky AI on his ship. Basically, if you like Red Dwarf and you like British sci-fi, you'll probably like Shaman King a lot. It's very quirky. It's got a lot of great ideas. Dave's artwork is kind of cartoony, but it's definitely appealing. So, did you get where you want to go with your article, Ben?
I can't share the screen I want to share. Hold on. Maybe I'm trying to figure it out.
Okay.
So keep them going while I figure this out.
So anyway, the series has been going on for I think like 16 issues, and it started off. AP's run started in Planet Comics actually. So while you're speculating on the new run, you might want to go back and get some issues of that. But what else can I say about it? It's funny. It's got action. I wish I could recall under pressure some of the plots to the stories. We should probably just have Dave on sometime and have him try to describe it. He has a very charming English accent.
All right. So here we go.
Yeah.
So there is the story. So
Okay.
Logan Paul, I honestly, to be honest, I have no idea who this guy is. I assume he's a big influencer.
Okay, so he's a infamous YouTube and online influencer, like you said. He does a lot of bro stunt stuff. He boxed Mike Tyson and got into
Oh yes, I think
NFTs.
I heard of them. Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, that was kind of like, I don't want to call it the apex of his career, but like he'd been on YouTube doing like stunts and challenges and stuff for years, and so he's kind of love him or hate him kind of guy.
Oh,
And so he got into NFTs and he got into Bitcoin. He got a lot of like bro kind of stuff. But
well, apparently he has lots of money. Okay.
yes, that he does. I think he wrote a book.
What was the book he wrote? Do you know?
I don't remember.
All right, so I wrote a book.
I see a lot of books. I will let you know in a moment. But anyway,
no worries. All right, so the thing is, Logan Paul owns two of the most sought after manga first editions on the planet. All right, so let's dive into this. Summary: Logan Paul has acquired extremely rare, highly graded first edition chapters of the legendary manga series Dragon Ball and One Piece. So that I'm not sure whether these are extremely rare. I mean, I don't know if anyone actually has done a census of how many copies are actually out there, but let's just assume that they are. Okay, he spent a staggering over $500,000 on a 9.2 grade. And it's not even the highest grade. I mean, 9.2 is not the highest grade you can achieve. I mean, 10 is the highest grade you can achieve.
yeah.
Most grades go around 9.8. So there's possibly a 9.8 grade out there. The single highest graded copy in existence of a population of 1. So one copy has been graded so far, featuring the debut of Goku and Bulma. Now, in addition, he purchased a 9.0 graded copy of One Piece Chapter 1 for an undisclosed amount. Oh, well, that's curious. Wouldn't you think that he'd want to share that? Why?
What was the other one? I think
first appearance of Dragon Ball.
I think he paid the same amount, $550,000.
Okay, well, why is he not disclosing it? Or it doesn't make any sense.
I think it came out after this article came out, or it was a mistake. I don't.
He's embarrassed by how much he paid for it. I don't know.
Well, I mean, Todd McFarlane paid a lot more for a baseball, so I don't know what his problem is.
True. You have that kind of money. Be it far from me to tell them what to do with it.
Yeah.
So here it is, making the second high. So there is a higher graded copy of this first appearance of One Piece.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Logan is adding yet another impressive asset to his rapidly growing collection of high-end memorabilia. Taking a brief pivot from his usual multi-million-dollar Pokemon card acquisition, dinosaur fossils, the turned WWE superstar. Oh, so he's a wrestler too.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can't find his book, but I found his action figure on Amazon. So
he has his own action figure. Oh my God.
The WWE action figure.
Oh my gosh, that is very interesting. Setting on a record break. Okay, so I've got a couple of questions about this. Okay, so all right, so showcasing. So there's a copy of the first appearance of One Piece that's higher graded than the one he has. So why didn't he buy the highest graded one? I assume the owner didn't want to sell it. But
or it came about after.
Or it came out after he had already bought his copy.
Okay, you ask your questions because I have some theories. I have some questions and theories of my own. Go ahead.
Yes, you go right ahead. Okay, so the question is, why did he pay that? Okay, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, think about it. All right, before he bought those copies of manga, he could have bought them for $1. Okay.
Yeah.
Why did he pay that kind of money? Was somebody actually? I mean, what made him determine that that's how much they were worth? Okay, it makes no sense because before this story came out, nobody was collecting manga. Okay.
Right.
If they were collecting manga, they sure weren't paying $500,000 for a copy.
I think you're touching on why this story is. You're touching on why this dollar amount is particularly stupid.
It is curious, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm the conspiracy theorist in me is starting to percolate.
Well,
Figure out what it would be the reason for him to pay such an enormous amount of money for a manga. Okay, that's actually not that old. Okay, it's just really, I mean, in the grand scheme of collectibles, it's really not that old. I mean, we're talking about the first appearance of Superman, which is Action #1. You have to go back all the way back to 1938.
right.
Okay, 1938. Okay, my understanding is this One Piece first appearance, which is appeared in Shonen, Jump. I think started in like 1994. Am I correct?
It's about 20 years. It's about 20 or 30 years old.
Yeah, it's not that old. Okay, in the grand scheme of things. Yes, it's extremely popular, but so a lot of things have been really popular. It's just one of those things that, to me, the price makes no sense other than just to make headlines.
So here's my theory about it. I don't know. The big question is, to me, the big questions come from that manga, obviously is a Japanese thing. And I don't understand all the ins and outs of Japanese collecting culture. Like, are the Japanese in the habit of slabbing old stuff and selling it for more?
See,
that's an American thing.
That's the thing. Okay, I'm sure there are people who collect manga in Japan.
Right.
But it's not the same kind of collecting culture we have here.
Right.
People read manga in Japan as disposable entertainment. That's what it is. They buy the little collections later, the little tiny, mangas that they actually, those are the ones they actually keep. Okay, because those are the ones they'll keep reading over and over again. No one wants to collect these phone book size, because first of all, space is at a premium in Japan. Here, let me go ahead with this. First of all, space is at a premium in Japan. So unless you have a huge amount of storage space, no one's going to collect these phone book size mangas in their tiny little apartment. Okay, and so there's no room for them. First of all, second of all, while I'm sure some people do collect them, there's no real standard as to what their value is worth. Okay, because there's never been, as far as I know, a Japanese manga price guide like there was in the United States. We had a comic book price guide. Where we had collectors who actually collected, these comics. And first of all, the United States is a huge country, so we can collect, crap like that and have it fill up our garages or attic,
in your garage,
whatever we want to put them in. We can do that. It's not a problem. And plus, the comics in the United States are not phone book sized. Okay, they're not 1,000 pages. They're like 32 pages. So they're not going to take up that much space per issue.
And they're also not weekly.
And plus the it's all about supply and demand. Everybody knows that in any collectible, it's all about supply and demand. When the demand outstrips the supply, the price is going to go up. The reason Action Comics #1 is worth so much money is there's like 30 copies in existence. Less than 100 copies in existence. In a population of 300 million. Maybe a collector size of what, I don't know what the comic, but let's say 300,000 as a guess. So you have possibly, and out of 300,000. Let's say 1,000 people want, a copy of Action #1. There's only less than 100 out there. I will guarantee you, if there was a warehouse find of 1938 copies of Action #1, even 100 copies would bring the price crashing down.
Sure, that would happen for anything.
Absolutely, for any collectible. Like for the longest time. Those Meagle, Star Trek, Captain Kirk, and Mr. Spock, they commanded high prices until someone found a huge warehouse full of them.
No shit, did that really happen?
Yeah, They found
Oh
a weird
wow.
Mr. Spock's, and the price of those just came crashing down. I mean, now the prices have gone back up again,
Yeah.
because in the 90s, that's where they found them,
Right.
so the prices can't crash down. But now after 40 years, the prices are starting to go back up again,
Mhm.
because the demand is starting to outstrip the supply again,
Right.
and that's the whole reason. So my question is, how do they determine that the first appearance of One Piece is worth $500,000?
Well,
You know,
so that okay. So on the back of a lot of what you said, you know, I don't think I remember like there was a book. I think it was actually by Torrin Smith about being a collector and manga fan in Japan because he was like, wasn't he the guy who was kind of like the manga ambassador of the '90s? Torrin Smith.
mhm.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I know who Torrin Smith is.
Right. Or what? No, it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't Torrin Smith. Who was it? Who's the guy who used to do Media Blasters?
Media Blasters.
No, not Media Blasters. Oh man. Anyway, there was okay. So there was a guy who was kind of like the guy who was bringing all the stuff over from Japan in the '90s, and I think he was the one who said that like only the most otaku of the otaku bother to collect the phone book sized books. And if you go to their part of the reason they're made fun of is you go to their apartments or whatever, and it's just stacks and stacks and stacks of these things, like an igloo. Like within the apartment, it's almost like another room of another layer of wall that's just the Shonen Jump collection.
But you also have to remember, a lot of those mangas come out weekly.
They come out weekly, but they're also it's like 2000 AD. They were on really bad paper,
Yeah,
and they were aimed at children.
they were practically printed on tissue paper. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, and that's because they wanted to sell them cheap. And like I said, they were disposable income. That's American comics are the same way.
They're
They were
very well. They were disposable entertainment. I
they
mean,
were disposable entertainment. That's
they
why
were meant to be thrown away when you're done.
they were meant to be thrown away and shared and folded up and put in your back pocket and stuck somewhere underneath your bed.
Right.
That was the whole point of it. They were so cheap that nobody really bothered to take care of them, and that's why they're worth so much money. My great copies are worth so much money, because nobody took care of them.
Well, you're talking about the American comics, about nobody taking care.
Comics. Same with Japanese manga. When I went to Japan, the attitude was that once you were through reading with them, you were done. Okay. We would ride the train, and I guarantee you would not have to buy a single a manga in your whole life if you just rode the train, because people would literally just leave them behind.
Oh, wow.
You could go from car to car and come up with an armful of manga, once you got to your stop. You wouldn't have to buy a single manga if you didn't want to, because there were plenty of them available. Now, you'd have to get what was left on the train, but I guarantee you just wanted to read manga, you could get free manga. It was plentiful, available, and cheap, and people were just like that. Now, I don't know what it is nowadays, but back in the 90s when I went there, literally you could walk off a train with an armful of manga,
Right.
And you didn't have to pay.
Well, even in the '90s too, there was, even in the States, it wasn't like it is now, where it's like a given that anything that comes out as a monthly comic, practically everything that's published as a monthly comic, is going to come out as a trade collection. I mean, writing for the trade is kind of, I won't get into it because I've said it too many times before, but writing for the trade has kind of hurt comic book writing in America. But like in Japan, it was like once they had enough installments of the strip, it was just a given that they would make a nice little book out of it. And that's part of why they were black and white, is because it was cheaper and easier to print 30 volumes, or what's One Piece up to, like 200 volumes. It was cheaper to print all those in black and white.
Well, the reason they print in black and white is a time saver. Okay. Right. It takes more time to do a book in color, and it's more expensive.
Right.
whole idea behind Japanese manga is that it has to be as cheap to produce as humanly possible. You know, and they've done it. You know, you know, you can buy at least, you know, I don't know how much a manga typical Shonen Jump costs nowadays, you know, but back then, I mean, it was practically like they practically gave them away. It was like 100 yen or something like that. It's something insanely cheap, you know, because they were relying on volume, you know.
Right, because they could afford to do that because Japan's a dinky little country, but still millions of people read Shonen.
Little country, but
Yeah, well, okay. But
it's small compared to the United States for sure.
yeah, I mean, isn't it smaller than California?
Something like that.
Yeah, but I mean, like even like they still managed to sell millions of copies of the most popular weekly manga, right?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't know what the circulation is. I know back then, yes, millions of copies. It was not unheard of.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So with that, okay, so let's get into the reason for this particular story to pop up. Okay, first of all, Paul Logan. I did not know he was a manga fan. Okay, I don't know if he is, or maybe he's just doing this as a stunt. Okay,
I did a little bit of research, and manga fans are not happy because there's nothing in his past that indicates he's a manga fan, and it does feel like more of a stunt.
So he probably sees how popular One Piece is and how popular Dragon Ball is.
Sure.
There's no denying, there's no denying that One Piece and Dragon Ball are huge international hits.
Right.
Millions of people are familiar with the characters.
Right.
Okay. So could it be that some collectors, you know, are conspiring to raise awareness of the collectability of these people who may have, who knows, these people who have copies of the first appearance of One Piece and first appearance of Dragon Ball, they may have been collecting these for years, okay? And they decided to use the popularity of both those IPs and get a huge influencer to basically pay $500, $500,000 for graded copies of these particular manga. Now, you could say he paid $500,000, but until I see an actual receipt or bill of sale, all we have is his word. Now, it's possible. I mean, who sold it to them? I mean, where did he get them? How did he determine the price? That makes no sense. The story does not get into any of that. All it goes into is how much he paid for it. So, who sold it to them? Where did he get it from? What was the,
well, that's the journalists. That's
like
the fault of the journalism.
Like, did he find some guy on eBay or on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace and say, hey, I have a 9.0 copy of One Piece first appearance and it's $500,000. Okay, I mean, how did he determine that was worth $500,000? Now, okay, if he had paid $5,000, okay, I could see that. That makes sense. Okay, sort of makes sense, and or you pay even $10,000, $500,000. I mean, that number is staggering, and you pay that much for the first appearance of Dragon Ball too. I was there when first appearance of Dragon Ball came out.
Yeah,
I saw the manga I didn't think much of it at the time because first I almost bought it because first of all, the guy who created Akira Toriyama created Dr. Slump. Okay.
Were you in Japan at this time when that
no, I wasn't in Japan, but I could have gotten a copy. I was in Japan in 1994, 95. So I could have gotten a first appearance easily if I wanted to. Okay, because it had just come out. Okay. Dragon Ball came out in like the late 80s, early 90s. So in 94, Dragon Ball still wasn't the international. It was popular. I mean, it was popular in Japan, and I was aware of it because I did a mangazine issue covering Dragon Ball.
I think I have that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like issue 45 of a mangazine. It's actually worth money, because
is it the first Dragon Ball in America?
The United States, yes. And I mean, collectors. What are you going to do?
It's like David Crow said about the Sentai #2. You know, it's the first Power Rangers in America, apparently.
Technically, it is. Okay, technically it is. It's not the first Power Rangers per se. It's the first in comics. You know.
Well, I think it's the first time they were in a cover in an American publication.
Now, I mean, technically speaking, there was like an underwear thing where they did have a comic in there. So that is, you know, to be honest, it did predate Sentai by a couple of months. Mm-hmm. So it is considered the first appearance, but that's a pretty hard one to find as well.
Yeah.
You know? And it's certainly not as kick-ass as the Sentai #2, for sure. Because the art is horrible in that thing.
Yeah.
You know? But anyway, so you know, I remember Dragon Ball when it first came out, you know, and I could very well have bought the very first appearance had I thought about it, you know, and had I cared. You know, I didn't care because, you know, hey, nobody collects manga. Okay, I mean, it didn't make any sense to me at the time.
Right.
You know, so now we get into I have a lot of questions about this particular story and whether or not this is the beginning of a trend to collect. I mean, as for speculators and for collectors to start collecting, you know, for first appearances of manga characters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and personally, I don't think so. My own opinion is that it's a fool's errand. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. Okay, there's nothing wrong with collecting anything, and people will collect anything. If you want to, if you're a manga fan and you suddenly decide, hey, I'm going to start collecting first appearances of my favorite manga characters, then hey, more power to you. But I don't think this is going to be an international or a big thing with American collectors.
No.
First of all, you have the language barrier. Okay. If you want to just to have it, great. Okay. But how many people can afford $500,000? I mean, hell, I would rather buy an Action Comics #1 for that much.
Well, not only that, you're going to have to broker that deal with somebody who doesn't, you know, somebody in Japan probably.
Oh, I'm sure there are people who will be more than happy to fulfill a demand. I just don't think there's going to be a demand.
No.
You know, first, you know, the whole reason for One Piece to be, I mean, One Piece is popular. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of One Piece. I don't really care for it, but you know, who am I to deny the popularity?
We're old, Ben. That's the problem.
Well, I just thought it was silly looking. It didn't for me. I mean, when I first saw it, I'll be honest with you, it just didn't hit me, you know, in any particular way. I like Urusei Yatsura. I thought that was good. One Piece art style was just weird. It was just, it's all rubbery. It sort of reminded me like 1930s cartoons, you know, those big rubber hose.
Oh, you know. Yeah. Hey, Joe Satome joined us. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Joe. Nice to see you. Glad someone's here besides us. We were just talking to ourselves.
Oh, people will join us after. Once they find out what a great time we had, they'll all want to join us. So yes. Okay, so here's my so I came to One Piece. I had a Japanese pen pal, and we would record VHS tapes of stuff, just miscellaneous stuff, and generally stuff that you didn't have to understand the language to appreciate. Like she would record like music shows and cartoons and Power Rangers, well, Super Sentai episodes, and I'd record like our music shows and Simpsons and South Park, and we'd mail them back and forth across the sea. And so there were some random episodes of One Piece on there, and I didn't know what it was. I was like, what the hell is this? And I had no idea even it was a show about pirates, because there was like no subtitles. There was no fandom for it. Even the anime fans hadn't found it or embraced it yet. They were still talking about Battle Angel and Dirty Pair and Gunsmith Cats. So, or shows related to Robotech. So I didn't, you know, I saw it and I was kind of like, like you said, it's a little weird, it's a little goofy. If you don't understand what they're saying, you miss a lot. Some anime you can watch and just appreciate the visuals, and this one, like, if you don't understand the story, you're missing a lot. So
I understand. Really.
Yeah. So
yeah, go ahead.
so that's why I wasn't like that. That's part of why I wasn't a huge fan. But like we were talking before about the scarcity. So I don't know because of the collecting culture in Japan. I don't know how many copies of this first appearance are still exist in Japan because like we said, you'd have to be even though it probably sold millions of copies, millions of those copies were left on subways and disposable, and it was aimed at children, and children just threw them away until they could get the book collection. Then they kept the book collection. Um, so I don't know how many hardcore otaku would have bagged that thing up in perfect pristine shape, a weekly throwaway, held on to it for decades until this clown came along and said, I'm willing to pay like an insane amount of money for it.
Well, I mean, you bring up an interesting point because the thing is, I don't know what the scarcity of any of this stuff is because there's been no censor. I mean,
Right.
no census of how many. I'm sure Shonen Jump printed millions of copies, literally
Right.
millions of copies. How many of them survived remains to be seen. But you have to guess that out of those millions of copies, some of them are going to survive.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I think it's going to be like I would say it's whatever the number is probably proportional to that Action Comics.
Well,
that sold millions of copies, and now only how many survive?
well, okay. So this is what is interesting. Okay, is it a long-term speculative market? Okay, is it, and will it be something that can sustain itself over years?
Hmm.
Now, there's been collecting booms before. Okay, NFTs, good example. Recent example, NFTs
Right.
huge. They commanded millions of dollars. Okay, and now where are they?
Right.
They're Beanie Babies, same thing. Thousands
Hmm.
of dollars for Beanie Babies. Now, no longer.
Can't give them away.
Now, so okay,
Now it's Jellycats and Nido.
interesting observation I made yesterday. Okay,
Mhm.
yesterday I went to a local collectors convention. Okay, it
Mhm.
was San Antonio Collectors Cards and Collectibles Convention. I went there yesterday. Okay, and I didn't find anything I wanted, but I usually go there just to see if somebody has some oddball stuff that they're willing to sell for cheap. So I
Mhm.
went there and I looked. I didn't find it. Everybody was selling mostly cards, but
Mhm.
I made a huge observation.
Mhm.
There were families there. Okay, there were kids there. There
Mhm.
were fathers with sons getting their kid to buy and collect Pokemon cards. Okay,
Mhm.
and that is the future of collecting. Okay,
Sure.
you get a new generation to get in the ground floor of collecting. That's going to sustain the collectability for generations. The thing about comics, okay, in general, is that we are losing a generation of collectors and readers
Oh,
because
we've lost at least one.
we've lost a whole generation. Okay, at
Mhm.
least, okay, because the people who are collecting are the old fogies like us.
Sure.
Okay, we don't, my kid does not have any interest in collecting comics, none.
Mhm.
Okay, I tried, but he just
That's how he's rebelling against his old man.
my daughter loves comics, but
Yeah.
she's not a collector. Okay, she
Right.
likes to read them, but she doesn't collect them.
Yeah.
Okay. So the the, the hobby of collecting comics is dependent on collectors. Okay,
Right.
you can. Uh, I think what Paul Logan is doing is making it a prestige item. Okay,
Mm.
he's trying to get the people with money to get in on this on the
Right.
ground, like NFTs. Okay, to
Mhm.
own a piece of pop culture that has international reach, and it sounds like the fine art market.
Right.
Money laundering scheme. Hey, you buy this first appearance of blah blah blah. Okay, pay this much money, and lo, we've laundered
Yeah.
$500,000.
That
Okay,
that was what one of the articles was saying too, is that it sounds like he's going to flip it Like he only bought it for that much to try to flip it, and it's like it's
Yeah.
already like overpriced. So good luck with that one, buddy. But
It's overpriced, but think of the logic behind it. Okay.
mhm,
Like I said, there are several questions that remain unanswered to my satisfaction.
mhm,
Okay. One, who sold it to him? Okay.
yeah,
Possess somebody to decide, hey, I'm going to take the first appearance of One Piece, okay, and slap it, okay, and get a grade.
mhm,
Okay. Second, how in the world do you determine the price? Okay, there's no record of the first appearance of One Piece being sold for any amount of money. Okay,
or
maybe
I mean, manga's been popular in this country for a long time.
yes, but
You and I have been there
no one
since.
collects manga because it's Japanese. Okay, at least here in this country. Okay, it makes no sense for
Because I
America.
remember seeing like old Shonen Jumps in a box for like $5 or less. You'd go to comic convention and then it'd be like,
Away. Nobody would
huh?
buy it. I mean, the thing is that the I collected them because I'm a manga fan. Okay,
Mhm.
I would be the person that would probably buy something like that, but I don't care about One Piece.
And you were
Okay,
probably looking for ideas to
and
steal.
it never occurred to me. Well, first of all, it never occurred to me to get it because it's a language barrier. Why would I get it?
Right.
Okay, if I were to buy One Piece, I'd buy the English version so I can read it because I read manga.
Hmm.
Okay, I don't collect manga; I read it.
Yeah.
Okay, I collect merchandise. Okay, I collect things that remind me of the anime show or the manga or whatever,
Hmm.
and and I buy the collections because
Hmm.
they're a lot easier to go through because when you buy Shonen Jump, you're buying 30 other stories in there.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
and I just want that one story.
Mm.
So if I want the one story, I just buy the collection, and that's simple. As that.
Right.
But uh, it makes no now maybe first printings of the collections here in the States might start to go up. Maybe like the
That I
first
would understand. The first printing, that's a very collector's collectible kind of thing. First printings of the book.
yeah, but the thing is they do first, second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th printings, so those things really don't really go up in value so much because they're readily available.
Right.
Okay. Why would I buy a first printing for $100 when I could buy a 10th printing for $2?
Right. Okay, so
It's,
that goes back to the difference between, I mean, both mentalities and publishing. So in the States, comic up until like the 90s or even early 2000s, like I said before, it wasn't a given that everything was going to be collected and put into a book. So if you missed an issue of the X-Men in the 80s, peak X-Men in the 80s, you were screwed unless you were willing to pay top dollar, collector's price just to find out what happened in the story, what happened in that one issue. If you missed the light,
back
like,
then, back then you had shops that you could go to find a back issue.
right,
Okay, and
right,
it was readily available. You could also exchange with other collectors. You
right.
go to Comic Cons. As far as I know, there are no manga back issue cons in Japan.
Because you
Okay,
don't need it, because
you
if you
don't need
just
it
if you're
because
just reading it, the mentality of like having to possess like the, that that printing or that whatever of anything, I don't know if that exists in Japan because they're just reading it for the story. So, let me see what Joe has to say here. One part, comics became niche consumer base. Second, comics got price pointed out of the hands of teens. Third, DC and Marvel and Image catered to the speculative collectors and crashed the market. All
you
true.
You're not wrong, Joe. You're not wrong, Joe. And
Yeah.
I've been saying this for years, and people just laugh at me because, oh, you can't go back to the old days, and
Well, I mean that's true too, but like right now as a one like I have coworkers who are adults who are One Piece fans, and they don't care if it's the first printing or the 20th printing. They're all they're already going to invest, like, how much is it per volume? even if you get those 3-in-1 volumes, I think those are like $20 each or something like that. They're going to have to get like all 200 volumes of One Piece one way or another, and that's going to be hundreds, if not a couple of $1,000s,
Well,
just to have it. Doesn't matter what printing or how collectible they are.
well, the thing is this is unfortunately the future of comics is that the floppies
Hmm.
are gone.
Yeah.
Okay, the floppies are gone. It's going to be replaced by books.
Hmm.
Okay, graphic novels. You know, and that's the future. Now,
Sure.
floppies will continue in a niche market where people just want to buy floppies, and what will happen is that there'll be individuals who will continue to do floppies and offer them at a reasonable price directly to the consumer.
Hmm.
Okay, but if you really want to make it big in comics, it's the Dog Man. Okay,
Yeah.
that's the future. The Captain Underpants.
Hmm.
That's the future of comics. Okay,
Yeah.
and manga. Okay, that's the future of comics. Okay, look at DC. DC is trying their hand at doing, those collections in the manga size. It's working out really well for them. Yes, Absolute Batman is taking off, but it's not enough. Okay,
Yeah.
and sooner or later, people are going to get tired of it.
Hmm.
It always happens. Yes, it's popular now. Okay, but I've seen this before. And when I predicted that Absolute Batman is going to crash and burn, I just don't know when. But it will. Eventuality is going to happen because that's because it's not Batman. And sooner or later, people are going to get tired of it, and sooner or later, the creative team is going to start running out ideas, and they're desperate doing other things, and people are just going to get tired. Yes, it's people want to see a new take on Batman, but I've seen this before. It's not new, and sooner or later it's going to crash and burn. I just don't know when, but it will eventually. But regardless of that, the reason that this manga speculation is not, in my opinion, going to be a thing. Yes, it'll be a short-term thing. It will be. Okay, because you don't throw around numbers like that and not get people's attention. Okay,
Well,
now
again, he's throwing big money at the most popular manga with kids right now, and the second most, one of the, some, I don't know where Dragon Ball falls these days because I don't think it's as popular as it used to be, but it's still like up there in the top 10, top 20 popular, and especially for his
very recognizable. I don't know who you show a Dragon Ball character and almost anybody can recognize them. Just
well,
like
that for his demographic, which again, he's like, I think he's one of those older millennials, and older millennials are the ones that are running. They're running the show as far as comics and pop culture go right now. It's like, the best-selling comics are like He-Man, Thundercats, what GI Joe, all the stuff the millennials, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, all the stuff they remember from when they were kids, and so he's going for that. Like, I'm sure something like Ranma 1/2, like a first printing of that, would be even rarer than One Piece. But nobody's like nobody's even nobody's collecting it at all. Never mind putting like any kind of dollar value, even if it sold like $1,000 instead of $500,000. Nobody's collecting any of that vintage manga at all. So let me see what Joe says. In Japan, if you wanted to read a missed issue of a manga, there are manga tea cafes. You pay a small fee to sit around and read their library of back issues. Yeah, so I mean, if you just want to read the story, um,
if you just want to read something,
if you want to read the story, you could do it like for next to nothing. If you want to just the manga that's popular now has been printed and reprinted so many times. I'd be shocked if you couldn't get it, the book collection, for cover price or less. There's the supply is about equal to whatever the demand is. The only reason you collect the Shonen Jump version is to basically have bragging rights, like I've got the Shonen Jump version. And for this guy who's wealthy from all of his scams and schemes, he's got enough money that he can, pull that up. I think, you were saying like, where's he? You had all these questions. I think he probably had somebody in Japan, or he went to Japan, found an issue, paid somebody somewhere to grade it, paid somebody somewhere to slab it, and then
Yes. Okay. That brings up another point. In the story, it doesn't show the provenance. Okay, how did he get it? Where did he get it? Who sold it to him? Like I said, all it says is how much he paid for it. Okay.
right,
And to me, that is not enough. Okay.
right. Well, I mean, I couldn't write a biography about Logan Paul, but from what I know about his career, everything he does is like based on clickbait.
Well,
So the long boring version of the story, nobody cares about. Like all the questions, valid questions you have, those never make it into the story. It's just the sensational part, like this guy who from YouTube, who's a big scamming bro, did another scam, and this time he's doing this comic that you all know and paid like crazy money for it, and that's it. Move on.
You bring up an interesting point. Okay, the thing is that if they had just had a story, say private collector buys first appearance of One Piece for $500,000, okay, that would have been one thing. Okay,
Right.
that somebody out there wanted that first appearance in that grade desperately enough to pay $500,000, which is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, that's not an insignificant amount of money. Okay, but the fact that it was Logan Paul, okay, who made the headline, that is what I find very curious.
Well,
Okay.
it's an attention economy, and it was probably worth it. If he's got the money, it was probably worth it for him to pay that much to get the attention.
Yes, but like I said, how did they determine? Because there'd never been. Okay, all right. Let's say there was a huge collector's market for manga. Okay, why have we not heard of it? Okay, why have we not heard? Okay, One Piece has been around for nearly over 20 years. Okay, a long time. By any, not a long time in collectors, but a fairly amount of long time. And why haven't we back in, like, say 10 years ago, heard first appearance of One Piece sells for $1,000? Okay, then that would have sort of piqued people's interest. Okay, and then people started looking for it. And then maybe 5 years ago, someone paid $15,000 for a 9.5 of first appearance of One Piece. Okay, see, then you have precedence. Okay, then you have real collector market out there who is trying to collect the first appearance of One Piece. Now, all of a sudden, out of the blue, okay, some guy says, I got the first appearance of One Piece and I paid $500,000. Okay, how did that person who sold it to him determine that price? Okay, how did he?
I'll see you one. I'll see you one better. I'll see you one better twice, because there have to be thousands upon thousands of pages of original art in Japan, like probably even thousands of pages just of One Piece. Why haven't we heard about a piece of original One Piece art going for tens of thousands of dollars or $100,000?
It's not unusual for an artist not to sell his pages,
Yeah, but still, I mean, imagine if he did.
He's not hurting for money, so there's no reason for him to sell his pages. Unless he wants to give them to his assistants, and let him. So I don't know. There could be any number of reasons for original artwork not. Now, okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of things. How does a collector's market start? Okay, by people collecting, okay, and then trading. So the golden age of comics from 1930 to 1945, maybe 47, okay, is considered the golden age of comics. So people were buying comics and didn't care.
Right.
Okay, paper drives, kids bought them for 10 cents, put them in their back pocket, traded with their friends, did all sorts of terrible and horrible things to those comics because they were 10 cents and nobody gave a shit about a comic that they bought for 10 cents. Right. Okay, so it never occurred. They collected them because they wanted to reread them.
Right.
Okay, people collected them, usually collected them because they liked them and wanted to reread them, and they think, oh, I want to keep these, because I like it and I want to collect them. So, then the atomic age of comics comes, and people, same thing, didn't care. It wasn't until my understanding, I don't think it wasn't until like maybe the late 50s, early 60s, people started to collect comics. Okay. And people starting to buy back issues. Okay. Because there was no way of getting comics. Let's say a collector had Action Comics number 1 through 6, and he was missing number 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Right.
Okay. 1 is 7, 8, 9, and 10. How is he going to get one? He had to hope that he could find someone who actually collected him like him, who had 7, 8, 9, and 10, and was willing to sell it to them. Okay, so we started, I don't know when the first ad came from somebody who wanted to buy back issues. If someone could find, the history of that would be great. But somewhere, somehow, somebody put an ad in the comic book saying, I buy back issues of comics. And I'm willing to pay this. I'm willing to pay $5 for an Action number 1. Now, if you're talking about 1960s, $5 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay. Old comic. So people probably look through their ad and say, hey, I can get $5 for, Joey's old, comic stash that he had in his bedroom. And that's how the collector's market starts. Okay.
Yeah, I remember when paying $3 for a 35-cent comic was like, ooh, that's 10 times more almost.
I remember finding a Hulk 181 at a used bookstore for 25 cents cover price. Back in 1980. And I bought it because I was a big Wolverine fan. But that just goes to show you how plentiful comics were back then.
Yeah.
And now, but the reason that comics are valuable is because there's a market for it.
Right.
People like to collect comics. Now, not so much now. I think comics are still overpriced, and I think there's going to be a market correction sooner or later. And I'm already starting to see it a little bit. But anyway, so how our people are suddenly going to go out and looking for manga? Well, I hate to break it to them. That's going to be extremely difficult here in this country.
Oh yeah, you'd have to get a broker
culture of getting Japanese manga. Okay,
I almost think that guy just had that done and then told whoever had it, like, okay, I'm going to pay you $500,000 for it, and then we'll get.
Well, he must have a lot of money to burn just to say, I mean, I would have $10,000 is a lot of money. Okay. And that still would have been a record. Okay. It's, like I said, this makes no sense to me, no logical sense. Okay. 500,000. I mean, how did he come up with that number? Did he think that because One Piece is so internationally known that there's like a 3 billion people out there who are wanting a One Piece number 1? Okay. First appearance. That's not how collections work. First of all, how many people do you know have $500,000 to spend on the first appearance of One Piece?
Well, get ready for this. According to ChatGPT 4.0 in my DuckDuckGo browser, Logan Paul's net worth is estimated to be approximately $150 million in 2026.
So he's like maybe less than 1% of his total wealth. In fact, in 0.0000.
Nah, not that low, but his wealth is primarily derived from various sources, including his successful YouTube career, boxing matches, and entrepreneurial ventures such as Prime Hydration.
That's his net worth, $15 million?
No, $150 million.
Okay. So he's got money to burn for sure.
Exactly.
Okay. But even then, even if you have money to burn, you still want to keep as much of it as you can. So again, it doesn't make any sense, especially on something like this.
Mm-hmm.
First appearance of One, for $500,000, he could have bought himself a very nice copy of Action number 1, or a very nice copy of Detective Number 27. And in my opinion, those are far better investments
Well,
than first
what if
appearance
the,
One Piece.
what if
I mean,
the next,
he could have bought stocks and they probably would have performed better.
what if the next, yeah, but it doesn't sound like he's really a stock guy. What if the next influence? Let's see. Hey, Simon Belmont from the
Hey,
UK.
Simon, how's it going?
Hi,
Welcome.
Stephen Ben. So if you make it to Comic-Con, Ben, Simon's the guy we'll be staying with. So
Well, we'll see what happens.
so the what if the next influencer comes along who wants some attention and they've got $200 million and they go like, oh, I'll buy Logan Paul's copy and just I'll sell it. I'll buy it for $500 or $600,000. So it says there are now companies in Japan that cater to the international collectors market. You become a member and request specific manga, toys, collectibles, and they will try and find it. So that's from Joe.
Well, but then again, how many people out there are willing to do that? Okay, I mean, yes, I will grant you. Okay, Dragon Ball,
Mm-hmm.
Piece. Okay, very popular IPs. Power Rangers, very popular IPs. Okay, but does that necessarily translate to some guy saying, you know what, I love these characters so much, I have to have the first appearance of this character?
Yeah,
Okay.
see that was the problem is nobody thinks that he loves those characters that much. That's why it's all dollars, cents, and attention. That's why people are pissed off. So I've got a story for you. There's a British talk show host who shares my name. His name's Jonathan Ross, and he lurks around in the Micronaut collectors groups on Facebook. I won't tell you the fake name he uses, but it's like everybody knows who it is. And so he collects Micronauts. And so a few years ago at San Diego Comic-Con, he lurked in the group and said, "Hey, if anybody does anyone want to meet up?" And so I said, "Yeah, well, can we interview you for our podcast?" And everything comes back to 2000 AD. So he said, "Sure." I said, "Meet me at the 2000 AD booth." He showed up. We talked about Micronauts for 10 minutes, and they recorded it. And when we were done, he said, "Hey, I'm going to go pick up a commission from Michael Golden. Would you like to come with me?" So we were all like, "Yes." So we were like his little entourage walking across the dealer's room floor. And he said, "Nobody knows who I am in the state." I mean, this guy's as famous as Jimmy Fallon in the UK. So he's like, "Nobody knows who I am and nobody bothers me." So he's telling us these stories about how he's got there's a company called Mandarake in Japan, and they collect it's stores that sell vintage Japanese toys. And he's been showing for a while he was showing unboxing videos in his office, and he would get like a plastic tub, a 32-gallon plastic tub full of vintage Microman toys from Japan, and he'd open them up, and it's like some of that stuff I didn't even know existed. And he told us that what he would do is he'd just sit there up at all hours of the night, and he'd be on eBay placing these outrageously high bids, knowing that like nobody's ever going to match that, and he would always win because he's got millions of dollars to spend. And so some people were pissed at him because the prices went up high because he was like making these outrageously high bids, but eventually the prices corrected themselves. But we're talking like a toy that probably got like maybe $100 that he jacked up to $500 for a while, and then people realized like, oh, that was a one-time thing because it was him, and now it's down to like $200 or something like that. But I mean, this is just like a ridiculous spike, and somebody, I don't think it's going to affect the whole market, but one person's going to lose a lot of money. I don't know if it's going to be Logan Paul or whoever he sells it to, or whoever they sell it to. I think however many degrees away from Logan Paul you get, unless he sells it to another big celebrity, I don't think it's going to get any more. I don't think it's going to be an ongoing thing, and I don't think it's going to be for anything other than these top tier things that now have like a huge fan base. Because you're not going to like an original first appearance of Akira is not going to get this kind of money. I don't even think an original page of artwork from Akira would get this kind of money. So anyway, that's my rant.
Well, like I said, there's like fans and there's collectors. Okay,
Right,
you can be a fan of One Piece, but you don't collect much. You just buy an occasional piece of merchandise or you cosplay or whatever.
right.
But then, okay, are these fans serious enough to be collectors of things like wanting the first appearance of One Piece?
Hmm.
Okay, it's one thing just to be a fan of the show and enjoy it.
Hmm.
Okay, and that's it. You're perfectly satisfied with that. Okay,
Hmm.
you don't have to worry about doing anything else. Yes, maybe you'll, like I say, you'll cosplay or you'll buy an occasional piece of merchandise. You know,
Hmm.
just to show other people that you're a fan of One Piece. You
Sure.
know, people buy these pieces of merchandise, you know, just to show their flag. So when you have
Right,
friends, people come over, they see a One piece of merchandise, you know, says, "Oh, you're a fan of One Piece," and that's how you get the conversation started. See, I'm a
right.
big fan of One Piece too, but how many of them are serious enough to want to search out just to own the first appearance of One Piece, you know, that appeared in the manga?
Right.
And how many of them are willing to shell out $500,000?
Well, that's where you get into like the celebrity fans of stuff, and like back in our day, there were only so many different ways you could. There were so many different ways you could like be a fan. You could collect everything, or you could do do fan art, I guess, or because when we were, I mean, when we were younger, cosplay really wasn't a thing. You know, that wasn't an option. There was no fan fiction to
Yeah,
speak
well,
of.
it was a thing, but they were called costume contests.
Yeah, well, and those you ended up getting a lot of heckling. We weren't good.
The thing was the costume contest people were serious. Okay,
That's
they
true.
they they dressed up because they really wanted to, you know, play the character. Now cosplayers are just people who just walk around, you know, who
Right,
to show off their skills at replicating, you know, whatever character that they like. And
right,
some of them don't even care about the characters. They just
right.
like to show off their costume making skills.
Well,
You
and
know,
because of the internet, there's a lot more ways to trade costume making ideas. Because back then it was kind of like, well, how do I make a plastic helmet? And it's kind of like I'm not a plastics user and
yeah,
person,
well,
and
now
not
with 3D printing, anybody can make it.
yeah. Or I mean, well, there was a time in between where people were able to make molds and do
Yeah,
things.
styrofoam, cardboard, whatever.
Yeah, they got pretty. I mean, some of they actually got pretty good, just at like plastic injected molds or something. So, um, okay. So Joe says, "Oh Lord, there are a lot of people who want things of Japanese pop culture. I myself in the '90s had a guy in the Philippines I'd send money to, and he would buy me stuff in Japan, then mail it to me. You know who does that? Paul.
I
Paul
did
Lord.
it. I did it back in the 80s and 90s too as well. I had a
Yeah.
pen pal, and he would want me to buy American pop culture toys and merchandise, and he would send me Japanese pop culture toys and merchandise. You
Hmm.
know, we would just exchange, you know, back and forth, and it was great because back in the 80s, the yen was like 300 to the dollar, so I got a really good deal on a
Yeah.
bunch of stuff back then. But when the exchange rate, you know, crashed, then it, you know, wasn't as lucrative anymore. But anyway, I mean, he must have a ton of old '80s stuff that I sent him. I mean, I would
Hmm.
literally go buy GI Joes, Transformers, you know, Silverhawks, Thundercats, pack
Yeah.
it all up, and send it to him in Japan, and he would send me things like, you know, jumbo machiners and things like that. It was a great system for both of us. But
Yeah.
anyway, but then that is there a is it going to be a real collector's market for manga, uh, or will this just be a one and done fad?
Oh, it's a one and done fad because like I said, there's so many different ways fans can be fans. And it's not about. I mean, there will always be that person who's got like the oh, I've got something nobody else has mentality, and they've got enough money to make that claim. But like the fans I've seen of One Piece, they just want to read the story or watch the cartoon and talk about it with their friends, whether it's in person or online in forums. There's fan fiction. There's people who do crafts of the characters and all that. You don't need to buy and acquire like the official product that the company makes to be a
Well,
fan anymore.
the problem is, and there's several that I'll note. One is is there enough of a demand here in the States to sustain a manga collector's market? I say no.
No.
There's plenty of people who read manga, yes. Okay, there are plenty of people who like the characters, yes. Okay, is there a strong enough demand, okay, for there be a collector's market to collect the manga? No. Okay,
No.
first of all, you have to have merchandise to collect. Okay, there's not enough, okay, first appearances of One Piece in the United States for people to even begin to start collecting.
No.
Okay, if you have people start collecting, then they have to start collecting somewhere. Where are they going to start? Okay, and if there's nothing to collect, then they'll either be discouraged, or they'll just move on to something else.
Right.
Okay.
And this is going to be that high end stuff is going to be for people with a lot of money or celebrities with a lot of money who are trying to get attention.
Okay. Like the fine arts, okay, conspiracy. It is. It's a money laundering scheme.
I know.
I mean, how else can you explain it? It makes no sense otherwise. Okay, it makes no sense otherwise. Now, I will make a caveat that I could be wrong on that, and if I am, prove me wrong, and I will readily admit that I was wrong. Okay, I'm not one to not admit but I logically it makes no sense.
Right.
Okay, I don't see any Japanese person, even a collector, paying $500,000 for the first appearance of One Piece.
No.
It's literally an impossibility. Okay,
I don't.
There's a Japanese collector out there. Who is it?
Well, again, like you know Japanese culture better than most people. Like, again, going back to like the vintage days of Ranma 1/2 and Urusei Yatsura and all the stuff that we like. Did you ever hear of like a Japanese collector collecting a first edition of Shonen Jump for $500 or $1,000 or $20 or whatever? I mean,
they don't collect that kind of stuff. It's not in their DNA. It's not in their mentality.
No,
okay?
They collect the toys.
Buy the collections. The publishers know that what they print are disposable.
Right.
Okay, nobody cares about collecting the first appearance because Japanese people read their manga. Okay, they don't collect the manga; they read the manga, and that's where the big thing is different. Because if they wanted to recollect it, they collect it in the small, collected.
In the digest. So
that's for them. Okay? I mean, there are probably there's got to be some person out there who does that. Okay, but he doesn't set the market price.
Yeah, but I've never heard of such a thing. I mean, not that it doesn't exist because I haven't heard of it, but it's like we were so into it back in the day that if we knew of like collectors in Japan, and so you're saying they really don't collect the printed matter, but they'll collect the toys, they'll collect the record albums, they'll collect like pretty much anything but the printed books. Well,
why do people collect anyway? Because they like something. Okay, they want to have, they want to look at it. Okay, people collect toys because they like looking at it. They like, the play value of it. They like the artistic, thing, the rarity of it. Why do people collect comics? Because they want to read them. At least they used to. Okay, I knew when I was collecting comics, I read them.
Yeah.
Okay, those are the reasons why I collected something. If I like something, I buy it. Okay, I like Warriors because I like the artistry, and I like the way they looked. Okay, I collect Shogun Warriors. People collect things because they like it and because it brings them some sort of joy. Now, if they're buying it for speculation, okay, this is where things go off the rails. Okay, buying something in hopes that it'll increase in value, is the wrong way of collecting. You want to read that?
Yep. So Joe says, "Hey, this reminds me. I found a whole bunch of Robotech Valkyrie fighter toys once back in the '90s. I sent a bunch of them to Antarctic Press Office just for the hell of it.
I don't know
Well,
about,
they've gone down the void now. I have no idea where they would be."
well, I thank you, Joe. If you did do,
Yeah,
I probably remember it, but
whoever opened the box was a lucky person. I don't think
90s
they shared
are
with
a long
anybody
time ago.
else.
The 90s, but yeah, but those were plentiful back then. You could buy them a dime a dozen back in the 90s.
Oh,
And
those
people,
were like at every swap meet I ever went to. Those
yeah,
Robotech toys.
I remember, a bunch of Robotech toys were in clearance, but
Or those those bootlegish ones too.
oh yeah, the
Yeah,
Guardians, things like
yeah.
that. Those were the days, huh?
I know, right? What a time! What a time!
So I mean, and like, so there's a difference between collecting and speculating. Okay, let me
Right.
make this clear. Okay, collecting is people who enjoy something and want to have a part of it, as just as a reminder, or they like to own it because it brings them some sort of joy or satisfaction.
Hmm.
There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, I think though, and like I said, it's all about supply and demand. There are
Hmm.
certain things that are in low supply, and there are too many people who want them, so
Right.
the price is adjusted accordingly. Okay, so this manga speculating thing is different. Speculating is that you get something in hopes that it will increase in value,
Hmm.
okay? And then you're hoping to flip it. Like you said, I would not be surprised if Logan Paul were to find some sort of sucker to pay him $1 million for the first appearance of One Piece. Okay, if he did do that, I'd sure like to see how that sale goes down. Because
Hmm.
there's got to be paperwork when you make a sale of that magnitude. Okay, I mean it's huge. There are taxes involved. There are people who need to know, where this money came from. I mean, nobody spends $1 million on something, and just have it be like, oh, no, 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 no.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe they'll have a WWE match where they put the comic in a briefcase and hang it over the ring, and they'll have a table ladder and chair match to try to get it down from up there.
well, the thing is, it makes no sense. That's what I'm saying. Okay, it makes absolutely no logical sense. Okay, when you make a purchase of that magnitude, okay, people pay attention. The
Yeah,
government pays attention.
yeah,
Okay, there's oh, you just bought this for $1 million, and who did you sell it to?
right.
Okay, because that guy has to pay taxes.
Hmm.
All right, and that's the thing is that when you make sales like that, especially a public sale like that. Now, if this was like a private sale, under the table,
No, there's no. This guy
then
doesn't do much
that
in
would be
private.
totally, that'd be
No,
totally.
it's an intent. I mean, like I said, it was he's buying himself $500,000 worth of attention, which is valuable to him. Joe says I turned half the ones I kept into dioramas, and the other half, well, there were fireworks involved.
I bet Joe regrets that now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, did he have however
you
many
know,
dollars he spent worth of fun?
I applaud Joe. At least he had fun with his toys. That's the important thing.
He was like
Toys
that
that he
kid
played
from
with. That's
Ike from Toy Story. So here, I mean, I collect a lot of things, but I can't. I'm trying to recall anything that there are so few things that I've spent more than like retail price on. Usually, I get a
yeah. I refuse to.
u- u- usually my bragging rights are like how much of a discount I get on stuff. So I've got an insane amount of Micronauts in the other room, and I think I've paid either clearance price or regular retail on almost all of them. Or I bought like a bag of parts, and the person didn't know what it was, and so I said when I got it home, I was like, "Oh, that's a battle cruiser. That's a mobile exploration lab." Blah, blah, blah. So, and to me, that's the fun of it. $50 for a bag of parts, and it turns into maybe a couple $100 worth of, and it's like, oh, it's missing the claw arm or whatever. And it's like that'll turn up in the next bag of parts I get. So that's the fun of, I mean, that particular line of toys. that's what you can do with it. But all my Judge Dredd stuff, I paid retail price for, and now, especially as far as the United States goes, it's completely worthless.
Like I said, you're a collector. Okay, you collect because you enjoy it and you
Yeah,
like
I do like my Judge Dredds and my
it. Okay, the thing is that it makes you happy, and that's the whole reason behind collecting. Now, I think in this case, okay, Paul Logan didn't buy One Piece because he loves One Piece.
No.
He bought this One Piece because he has some sort of, plan or scheme, that involves money. Okay, I think he enjoys money. Okay, and
money and attention.
I don't know him. Okay, I don't know him. I don't, never met the person, so I don't know what his reasoning is. I just find it odd that this particular individual paid this kind of money, speculating that someone is going to pay more than $500,000 on the first appearance of One Piece. And, what is he trying to do? Okay. What if this was truly a rare item, okay, a truly genuine rare item, okay, then that'd be one thing. Okay. My understanding is millions of copies of these things were printed. This can't possibly be rare. Can't possibly be rare. It just the only way it can be rare is that they took the entire print run and burned it. Okay.
Well,
but not possible.
Well, okay, so when Sentai #2 was valuable, from what I understand,
well, Sentai #2 had a genuine low print run.
Well,
we printed 5,000.
It was how many did you print up of those?
We printed less than 5,000. I mean, it's in the issue. We only printed like 5,000 copies, and out of all of them, okay, how many of them remained unsold? And of all of them, how many of them were just lost or destroyed?
Well, I mean, 5,000 copies. Like you'd kill to have a print run like that now. I mean,
yeah, back then, that was just okay.
Yeah. Right. So I mean, I remember when it kind of broke that suddenly this thing was really valuable because first American whatever, and then all of a sudden everybody was like scouring in their collections and finding like more of them, and more hit the market, and I was like, well, I've got 3 of these things, so.
And it stabilized the prices. I mean, people were asking like $1,000 for 9.8s. Now, you can get a Sentai #2 easily for under, $100 depending on condition.
Right.
So it's not the market has corrected itself. But
right.
then
also you got to remember, the funny thing too is the same artist who did that cover did the Ultraman cover.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like it's all about the Power Rangers and not really much about the artist.
Because the Power Rangers was not the first appearance of Ultraman, in comics. Okay. Yeah. Also, you have to remember that also the Sentai was printed here, so people could go out and find a copy,
right,
and add to the collector's market. Okay, how many people are going to go and say, "Hey, I have the first appearance of One Piece in my attic or in my collection"? Okay, I will almost guarantee you not many.
So if he's going to flip that, he needs to flip it fast because everybody in Japan is going to be who might have a copy.
Jason,
this is our friend Jason, my friend Jason from Everything Comes Back to 2000 AD fandom. Also, he just came off of a long Zoom chat with our friends over in the UK with me, and he joined us here. So thank you, Jason.
Oh, hello, Governor. Welcome.
Yeah. No. He's the other token American.
Oh, is he?
We're the 2 token American.
There, buddy.
He's so American. He's from Iowa. He's so American. He went to the Evel Knievel Museum.
There you go. That's real American.
Yeah, he's
real American hero
too. So he's got connections.
I got connections. Yeah. So my final verdict is that yes, there is a collector's market for manga. How big it will be, it depends. Okay, my experience has been practically nobody collects manga, at least
No.
here in the States.
No.
Okay. Will there be a sudden burst of people wanting to collect manga? I highly doubt it. Okay,
Right.
because you have the language barrier, first of all. And being a fan of a TV show or an anime, I think more people are actually fans of the anime,
Yes.
not necessarily of the manga.
Right.
Okay. People will watch the anime, and be fans of the anime, but don't give a rat's ass about the manga.
Right.
Okay, if manga was so popular, okay, the One Piece manga would be selling millions of copies here in the States.
It does pretty good.
It does good. Don't
It
get me
does
wrong.
really good.
Good. Okay. But compared to the actual people who watch the show,
Oh
okay,
yeah.
it doesn't compare.
Well, okay, so that's true. That's true of American comics too. Okay, so Joe says the vast majority of my collectibles were stolen during a move of address. I knew who did it, but couldn't prove it. This sounds like you, Ben.
Yeah,
I knew who did it, but couldn't prove it. So I let a repo man know where the guy was hiding his truck.
yeah, I can sympathize, Joe. The same thing happened to me many, many years ago.
Revenge is a dish best served cold.
I mean, fortunately, I had insurance, so I was able to recover at least the value of it. But there was stuff in there that I sure wish I still had.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that. So, okay, so let's put this on the American market. So you got like everybody's going like, oh, Absolute Batman, and not to take away from how good Absolute Batman may be, but you got a character that he's been around for
1939.
How much? How long?
He first appeared in 1939.
Okay, so my math is terrible, but I'm guessing like about 80 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
80 years. Okay, so 80 years. Some of that just as a comic book character, or some from the serials, from the radio show, outside of the comic book. Then you got the 60s. So from the 60s till now, you've got a character that's been on TV, live action, cartoon, awesome animated series, hugely popular films. Billions of people know Batman.
Well, and not only that, Batman was almost canceled in the 50s. They almost canceled his book.
Right. Well, I remember that was that the case in the 70s too, and it was like the Dark Knight that kind of gave it a shot in the arm, or
well, yeah, in the late 70s, I mean the late 60s and early 70s, yes, they made the switch from being the camp Batman back to being the serious Batman.
Right. And then like the 70s, it was still kind of shaky, but they kept it around because of the toy, because it was for licensing. And then Dark Knight Returns showed them like, oh, you could do a serious Batman, and that's when the Tim Burton thing kicked in and all that. That my friend Stephen Reed's probably listening to this with taking notes and, oh, you're wrong, blah, blah, blah. That I think that's the very short, broadest brush version of that story that I remember.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it's true. That's what I remember. But the point is, you got billions of people now, generations of people, fathers and sons and grandfathers, handing down a love of this character. So what does Absolute Batman sell? Because it's got to be in the.
Well, no one knows. Okay, there have been reports from DC that they sell like 300,000, 400,000. I'm not, but nobody can know because nobody publishes numbers anymore.
If it's less than 500,000 for a character that billions of people know, and this is like one of the best or most popular versions of it we've seen in comics for years, probably more than a couple of decades, that is pathetic, in my opinion.
I can't say. I
know every comic publisher in the world would love to have, or every comic publisher in the States would love to have those kind of numbers. But Batman's a completely unique character. It's like the best selling character DC Comics has now. And it's the most recognizable American comic book character.
Well, my prediction is that both Marvel and DC are going to stop doing floppies. I mean, it may not happen right away, okay, but sooner or later they're going to decide, it's not worth it. Okay, not worth it. And the thing about it is that their corporate overlords are going to say it's not worth it. You're you know, we have nearly 100 years worth of stuff that we can use. You know, we don't need to do anything new. People already recognize these characters.
Right.
You know, and there's no reason for us to keep doing new material. It's easier for us to license it. You know, we
Yeah.
make more money doing it that way. You know,
And
and
once they revealed that they're not, like around the time of She-Hulk, when they revealed that they're discouraging the creators from even of the TV and
well, what's the reason for Marvel and DC to exist? To publish comics. Am I correct? That's the reason.
eventually they became to publish comics and provide
That is the
IP.
reason for their existence is to
Right.
publish. That's how they started. Okay, and that's what their business model is: just to print and to create and to publish comics.
Yeah.
Okay, when that need is no longer needed, what is the reason for their existence?
To provide IP for future movies and TV shows.
They don't need to do that. The people who own the IPs don't need Marvel and DC to do that.
No, they have already got more than enough to make like movies and long beyond anybody's lifetime who's alive.
They have 80 years worth of material. They can go, you know, they have thousands, hundreds of thousands of characters that they can use that they've already created. Okay.
Right.
You know, they don't need to create any new characters.
No.
Okay? They don't not only do they not need to create new characters, why should they? Because if they create new characters, then they have to share. Okay, nowadays they have to share the copyright with the creator.
Right.
So they don't own it completely. See, they have hundreds of thousands of characters that they own completely. They can go through their life. They can have somebody go through their library, say, okay, this is your job. You're to go through every single Marvel comic and DC comic and list every single new character that we own, every single character we own, every one. Okay, and all the guy's going to do, or you just run it through with AI and say, list every single character that Marvel owns.
Yes.
And it'll pump out, it'll spit out a list. I will almost guarantee over 1 million characters. Okay, and there's no way they're going to develop that many characters. They don't need to. They don't.
No, and the AI could even come up with 10 story ideas.
All they need is 10 or 15 good characters to hold up the entire line.
Yeah,
that's all they need. Okay?
Well, how many characters? When Marvel got sold to Disney, didn't they say like how many characters that they actually had or something that were included in the sale? It was like, I don't know how many
thousands of characters.
Yeah, and how many out of all those thousands of characters, how many of them have some version made into the MCU yet? Even including the lame ones from the She-Hulk TV show, or the ones that they hinted at, like, oh, it's a guest appearance by so and so, and it doesn't look like so and so at all.
I'll give you an example. Just like DC Comics. Just Justice League comics alone, just one title, has probably hundreds of characters that they can choose from. Just one title, okay?
Yeah.
Marvel, okay? Just one title, the Avengers. You know, there are hundreds of characters they can pull from to make countless movies with them. Okay, countless movies. You know, and that's just one title.
Right.
Okay. You know, imagine all the titles they've printed over the last 80 years. Okay. They have an endless supply of ideas. Endless.
Also, I remember there was when people were some people, we know who they were complaining about some of the new characters like America Chavez and Ms. Marvel and these other characters that were part of like the new and improved Marvel and all that kind of thing. There was one of the editors at Marvel said, there's like 80 years of the characters you like, the old-fashioned Captain Marvel and the old-fashioned Iron Man and all the the dudes doing super dude stuff. All that stuff has been reprinted. You can get it. If the very few comics that have not been reprinted, you could be a collector and pay vintage comic price for those and own those, and you can read that stuff. Spend the rest of your lifetime just reading that stuff. We don't have to make that stuff new again. We don't have to tell new stories of that stuff. And it's my belief. Remember, like the very first MCU movies, I think up until like the Avengers, they would have that comic book flip through at the beginning, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to be so true to the comics that they're showing the comics little flip throughs. They tended to be like, it's like whatever that character was, they would show like flip throughs of old comics of that character. I think once they got popular, and then once they got popular enough, they got rid of that and just showed the MCU version. It was like a flip through of the MCU. It was basically the MCU was like self-referring to the MCU. And I think it was around that time that they started to get away from the comics. And there were comic store owners reportedly, from not exactly trustworthy sources, but reportedly were saying like Marvel wasn't doing anything to promote their comics at peak MCU time.
Because they didn't.
Well, I think what happened was for the old stuff, I think they got scared and they probably realized, if the people who are easily offended by things from the past, like racial attitudes and attitudes towards women, if people who are easily offended by that were to actually look at an old issue of Shang-Chi or some of the comics from the 60s and 70s and 80s where it's like a little oversexed and maybe a little racial slur and maybe some casual, sexism and or racism, they might be like canceled if people actually went back.
About it is, most people don't know who Shang-Chi is.
Right.
Okay. They probably thought that this is what people want to see, and they thought they made changes to they thought would appeal to larger audience as possible, and they have that right to do that. Of course, character, and let's face it, nobody knows who Shang-Chi is. Okay, so they could have done anything they wanted with the character, and they were hoping that it would take off. Now, I think personally, if I were to do it, I would have kept Shang-Chi street level. I would have made him Marvel's Bruce Lee, made it, totally martial arts focused and not on fantasy, whatever the hell. Because they were trying to make Shang-Chi an Avengers level character when he should have been a Daredevil level character.
So you didn't feel seen?
It was over budgeted. Let's just say.
Yeah,
it was over budgeted.
Well, in particular with the case of Shang-Chi, I think Marvel just looked. I think the people behind Marvel looked at it and said, "Yeah, first Asian superhero in the Avengers," and that was like the beginning and the end of the thought process. And then the next thing they did was they went through like all versions of Shang-Chi and said, well, what's the least offensive thing that we can add to this to mash it all together?
Done was they should have channeled Bruce Lee into Jackie Chan.
Right. But they couldn't. They couldn't. They were like, well, we can't use Fu Manchu because that's racist, and we can't have beat up people in opium dens because that's racist.
Use Fu Manchu because he was he's still in copyright.
No, he's been public domain. He's older than he's like Sherlock Holmes.
You sure about that?
I'm pretty sure he's public domain.
Fu Manchu, man. I would not have.
Jason says I like Shang-Chi movie up until they moved it to Chinese Narnia. You were not wrong on that one. So yeah. Well, plus there was, again, like as far as Asian people go, I don't think that Asians needed an awesome superhero, because like I could watch a Shaw Brothers movie. That was my thing with the whole Shang-Chi thing, is like I can watch a Shaw Brothers again. Like you.
Okay, listen. Listen. Do you know this? You know the Shang-Chi origin, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So for people who don't know, Shang-Chi, the original comic, okay, he was an assassin for Fu Manchu. Okay. Yeah. Fu Manchu had him under control. He was sent out to kill his enemies.
Right.
Okay. And then he turned against his father once he realized what an asshole he was.
Mhm.
Okay, that would have been the perfect story. Okay,
Right.
that would be an arc. He would have started off bad guy, kick-ass bad guy. Suddenly turns him, finds out his dad, like I said, is a real scumbag. And then he turns against them. Okay, that would have been low budget. Okay, would have been kick-ass if you had a good story. And would have introduced a very low stake, but very a very straightforward kind of character that Marvel needed. Okay.
But how would you factor Aquafina into that story?
I still think she's like a drink of water or something like that. Water brand.
Yeah. So, well,
I don't know. Okay, that I don't care about the casting. I just cared about the story.
right.
Okay,
So at the time,
it's all about the story.
well, again, supply and demand. At the time that Shang-Chi came out, Bruce Lee could not have made enough movies to fulfill the demand for that. And they were bringing over the Shaw Brothers and Golden Harvest Kung Fu movies, but the way they were doing, I love them to death. I love them to death, but the dubbing was silly. You see them on TV, they're cropped. The picture quality was kind of crappy.
Well, they can fix that AI, can't they?
Well, I mean, like 20 years ago, they restored all of them. They literally opened the vault for the first time and restored all of them, and made these really nice deluxe DVDs for practically everything.
I recently watched I recently watched a Bruce Lee movie, and the guy is not a very good actor, but he is a martial
Bruce
arts.
Lee's good at playing Bruce Lee.
He's good at playing Bruce Lee, nothing else.
Yeah, right.
His range is not wide.
No,
Okay. But I can see why kids, and people back then thought he was kick-ass, because you had to realize when he came out, he was so unlike anything at the time.
oh yeah, nobody had seen anything like that.
Nobody's seen anything like that before.
Not in the West.
Yeah.
So the thing is, though, and he wasn't even like top billed in Enter the Dragon. I mean, it was American film star John Saxon who was the star.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the thing is, like
no,
what?
Chuck Norris was not in there. He was in the other one. What movie was he in with Chuck Norris?
Oh, the one you saw was the Chuck Norris one. Was that Game of Death?
No, that wasn't Game of Death, was it?
There were I think there was like two of them that were made from footage that they had shot, but never. Then he died. Jason might know. Hey, Jason, what's the movie with Chuck Norris?
And Bruce
Lee. Too lazy to look it up. Joe says Marvel Studio was collaborating with China, so they were catering to China's film mandates and audience. I think what ultimately happened either they never, like, China didn't let it into the country, or
point there. Actually, I think Joe is correct. That's one of the reasons why they changed the character.
Okay. All right. But the thing is, like, I don't even think Chinese and China really needed an American big budget movie, because
the thinking at the time was that they did. Okay,
because I've seen Storm Riders, and I've seen Way of the Dragon. See, Jason.
The only time Chuck Norris lost the battle.
Yeah. There's a movie that made in Korea that Steven Seagal, that's the only fight he ever lost in a movie. And it's never, part of the deal was it's never meant to be shown here.
I understand that. Yeah.
So, and he loses off camera.
Yes, but you see, this is why speculating never works. Okay, because you have to have collectors. Okay, without collectors who love something, speculating will never work.
No.
Okay, because if you're banking on something to be popular, based on somebody willing to pay that kind of money for something, it makes no sense. Okay, no. Speculators are the ones. Collectors are the ones who determine the price. Mm-hmm. Okay, they're the ones who determine, what's valuable and what's valuable. Speculators do not determine that. Okay,
Mhm.
speculators only are in it to buy something in hopes that they will get a return. They're banking on enough demand out there and someone with so pockets to spend more than what they paid for it in order to make back. Do you think for one moment that Paul Logan is going to keep that copy? He's going to covet that copy of One Piece, that this is part of his collection that he will treasure forever? No.
No, of course not. I don't know if he treasures anything forever except his own ego.
It won't stay in his collection less than half a month. I mean,
Yeah.
not even half a year. You
No, he's
know,
just going to flip it.
yeah, he's already thinking of flipping it. He's
Mhm.
probably thinking, "Oh, did I really pay $500,000 for this?" There's probably doubt in his mind right now. Unless he has somebody already lined up, and say, and thinking that, how am I going to get my $500,000 back?
I
Hey, Dark
I'd
Half.
almost I'd almost wonder, like, if somebody is in Japan said, "Hey, I've got this thing. It's slabbed. It's this point thing. I'll sell it to you for $2,000." And he said, "I'll give you $550,000 for it," and then that way he gets his attention. So okay, so Saladin Bryant says the spec market killed if a lot of
Uh-oh.
value in the comic collector market. Now they are trying to make all that money back on manga. Yeah, yeah, no, yeah. It's like what? It's like Absolute Batman, or is it Absolute Batman? It's already maxed out. I don't see that making.
Now, okay, I will say my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that Paul Logan was also instrumental in creating the Pokemon market, the
Yeah,
Pokemon card.
he was doing Pokemon cards. Yeah,
Yes. The difference is that there's a huge uh, collector's market in Pokemon. Okay,
oh,
first of all, Pokemon is something you can play with.
right.
Okay, you can
No,
actually, and also it's cheap. The buy-in to Pokemon, cheap, 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 cheap.
yeah,
You can buy a pack of cards, for like $5, and you may get a collector's card in there that's worth $1,000.
you could
Okay,
buy an issue of Pokemon magazine with the cards attached to it for
yeah.
free.
See, that's the difference between Pokemon and manga.
Yeah,
Okay, he's talking about authentic Japanese manga. Okay, first of all, nobody has them. Okay,
mhm,
there's very few people in the United States who has. Oh, I just happen to have a huge warehouse of manga, and
right.
you have a huge warehouse of manga. Let's trade. And no,
No,
it's an impossibility. Pokemon. Okay, first of all, it's in English. Okay, so
mhm,
people collect it.
right,
Okay, and the fun of collecting Pokemon is you don't know what you're going to get.
right.
Okay. There's no first appearance that you have to sought after. You go for the card that's rare.
Mhm,
Okay. And it's genuinely rare because the card maker made it that way.
right.
Okay. With the first appearance of One Piece, they didn't make it that way. They printed millions of copies in hopes that they would sell millions of copies. And the same with manga. How do you collect manga? You can't. It's impossible because you have to keep track of when these characters appear. Should I buy which? All that's valuable is the first appearance. Okay,
Right.
that's
Are you
it.
gonna follow that up with the second appearance, the third appearance, the fourth appearance?
Right.
Do you have, like, that many hundreds of thousands of dollars? So Joe says, "Speculators drive up demand by buying up supplies, then dumping on the market to make a profit, which crashes the values."
Yeah.
So remember that toy
Collect.
collecting boom in the '90s, Ben, when people they were making, like, the first of the, I forgot the name of the company, but, like, it was like those mass market Marvel toys that actually
Age,
started to look like the toys.
Valiant. They were
Yeah,
all
well, I'm thinking not the ones that were kinda, like, following in the footsteps of Anarch Press. I mean, like, you go to Target and Toy Biz, I think Toy Biz was the company. So Marvel was making these toys that for the first time actually kinda sorta were comics accurate. And, like, there were adult men waiting outside of the Target next to my work to get to the toy aisle. And I heard stories that if they didn't have the money to buy up everything off the spindle, they brought a knife and would slash the packaging so they wouldn't be worth anything on the swap meet market or the convention market.
That's
So,
scummy.
I know. So, but I was going to say about the speculators. Shit, I forgot.
Well, the thing about the speculator market, okay, is
Oh,
that
okay. So I got a story to tell about the Pokemon cards. So I went to WonderCon a couple of weeks ago, and it's one of the it's put out by the same people who do San Diego Comic-Con, and it's pretty big. It's not it's like a quarter of the size of Comic-Con, but it's still one of the three bigger conventions out here, and our conventions are pretty big. So my boss is a librarian. She doesn't really know or like comics, but she's a librarian and knows graphic novels from what she.
as long as the kids are reading something.
Well, she knows them from what was popular at the library, and she knows what we sell at work. So I invited her to be my guest on my Pro Pass to come to Comic Con. So she brought her husband and her adult daughter, and her adult daughter brought these like 3 notebooks full of Pokemon cards, and she was like, "I'm going to see if anybody's interested in these." So she found a guy, and these conventions. It was a slow convention day that Sunday, but she found a guy with a big table of collectible cards who gave her like, I think she was at that at least an hour, maybe as much as 2, because my boss and I were like sitting there. We found a chair and we were just like sitting there waiting for her. And she was like wheeling and dealing. She came out with like $600. I think she got. I think it was. I forgot how much in cash. She got like this huge other box of Pokemon stuff in trade, and then I don't know how many hundreds of dollars she made, but it was a good. She got a good deal on that, and I was like, "How did you even do that?" Because none of these guys want to buy anything on this last day of the con, but apparently they were vintage and desirable enough that it was worth talking about. So who knew?
But then again, the thing is, why is Pokemon cards becoming so valuable, or is it collectors? I mean, you go to any flea market. I went to the flea market today, and there were at least half a dozen people selling Pokemon cards.
Sure.
Okay, and they were in baskets. People were digging through them. And they were like $1.50, whatever. And people were digging through them. People were trying to. It was the hunt. It was the hunt. They were looking for valuable Pokemon cards. But in the end, if you were a kid, the buy-in is cheap. You can buy Pokemon stuff for like $5, And that's the thing, is that, and that's what makes collectors. Because the thing about Pokemon cards is that you can play them, okay, you can enjoy them, and you can play with your friends, you can play with your kids, and that's what gives you happy memories. So when you're an adult, you say, I want to relive those happy memories by buying my childhood back, and that's why.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, that's why. That's why. You lost your train of thought.
No, that's why people collect. Okay.
Okay.
They relive their childhood. Okay. Some people it depends on what they, and also it brings them joy. Okay.
Right.
And that's the real reason people collect. Now, to me, the speculators are the vultures of the collecting world. They swirl around, try to get the stuff, that's and try to resell it as quickly as possible to make a profit. They're like day traders. They go in, they try to buy the stock, flip it as quickly as they can, because they have no love, for what they have. Their only interest is to make a quick profit, okay, and to make as much of it as they humanly can, and sometimes you don't have a choice. If it's something that you really think you want, then you buy it. You don't know better. The thing is, if you don't know what the value of it is and you have the money, then you buy it, and it makes you happy.
So here's sort of kind of wrap things up. Here's a question for you and for the peanut gallery. If you had 200, if you were a kid and you had $200. You mowed a lot of lawns, and you went to a convention. Which would you rather do? Spend the whole $200 on one super rare Pokemon card, or get 200 Pokemon cards?
I don't know.
I'm a cheap bastard. I'd get the 200 Pokemon cards, and I do that. I do that to this day. Like as an adult, if I had $200 and I went to a Comic-Con and it was like, you know, a super rare episode of a super rare issue of, let's say, FemForce for like $200, or I could get 99 copies of FemForce, the issues that I don't have, but they're not in great shape, and they're the common issues or whatever. I'd go for the 99 issues of FemForce because that's a lot of good reading right there. So, and that's you were saying earlier too about the stuff versus the reading material. I think you're right as far as like the especially like with the manga stuff. There's your wife will tell you there's a reading crisis. Ben's wife is a teacher, by the way. There's like a reading crisis for kids that's unbelievable. I mean, they really, a lot of them can't read, a lot of them can't write, and I think we're gonna, in addition to losing the comic book generation for whatever reason.
Yeah, my wife tells me that kids now, they don't know stuff. They don't know how to print legibly.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's the case, but it's just like everyone's so used to typing or texting, as though they've lost the art of being able to have good handwriting and good printing skills. But I disagree with you. I think kids do read. Okay, they just haven't had anything to read. There's a reason why Harry Potter was so big. Of course, this is before social media was big. People were still reading, books, and but now because of social media, they're finding it less entertaining. They read what's entertaining, okay, and kids find social media more entertaining.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean it's free and it's a constant feed, and there's constant novelty and it's constant dopamine hits. But the thing is, like, I think there's way fewer kids reading for pleasure like we did, because like you said, there's so much more distraction out there. They play games.
Yeah.
The old man talk. Oh, there are kids with the games and the phones and all. But it's true. That's true. And then, so I don't know if they're going to be as attached to collecting written word stuff as we were. It's kind of like I think I have a half dozen different editions of Princess of Mars, even though it's like, why do I need a half dozen editions? I know the story backwards and forwards. It's like, but it's like, oh, but this cover's different, and this one's got illustrations, and this one's got a nice.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised.
Format.
I wouldn't be surprised if people took public domain novels and just used AI to create, movie versions of them.
Some of us might be planning on doing exactly that, so don't give anybody ideas.
Joe South says, I can see the old Shonen Jump being collectible to an international markets. They're meant to be disposable. Well, yes, we talked about that. They are disposable, but the problem is the language barrier. People are actually, reluctant, I think, to collect something that's not in their native language. What's the point? Okay, I could show, if I showed somebody a copy of Shonen Jump in the original Japanese to an American, they would look at it and says, okay, well, that looks like a Japanese, comic.
Yeah.
They wouldn't care anything more of it. They wouldn't think anything more of it, because I would have to explain to them, well, this is the first appearance of One Piece. Don't you get it? And they would probably say, okay, so what?
Well, again,
I paid $500,000 for this. That is what would get their attention. Okay.
Well, also the thing that I'm finding too is like the Asian version, the original Asian version. Okay, let me read the darker half says, if you must know, years ago I had to hunt down German gun. Is that a German gun? And it cost me 400 Australian dollars. So, and that, I think,
like what, 4 cents?
No, Australian money is pretty.
Just kidding, mate.
So I had an I have an Australian Devo collector friend, and he would ask me to get stuff, and so like, you know, their dollar at the time was worth more than.
What is your manga? I have no idea. I'm not disputing that it's worth $400, but I have no idea what that is.
Yeah. So
Can you
but like
have?
the funny thing is too that I'm finding that the Japanese version of things isn't worth significantly more to collectors or fans of whatever it is here. Because like okay, we're talking about that Power Rangers cover, right, from Sentai. I
Mhm.
you remember like kind of adjacent to Shonen Jump, they'd release like TV Mag or that other. The first the first 20 pages were just like photos from the live action tokusatsu shows and the Super Sentai shows, and then the last batch of it was kind of like the same kind of cheap comic paper as Shonen Jump, but it was like Super Sentai Adventures and Metal Hero Adventures, and then they'd come in plastic bags with toys and cutouts and pogs or whatever thrown in there with them. Do you remember those?
I do.
So I'd see those like if it was a very specialized convention like Robo Toy Fest or something that had a lot of Super Sentai things or Japanese things, they'd turn up, but even even there they would sell for like maybe $20 tops. And then if it had like Jew Ranger, which was the Super Sentai team that became the Power Rangers, or any of the subsequent ones, then they would spike up to like $50 or something like that. And it's like, dude, this is the source material for this thing you like. These magazines, like Shonen Jump, weren't highly collected. They were just like thrown away, like they were sold to children, and either the children threw them away or after they got old enough, they threw them away. So, and it made itself across the ocean to here in this box. So, this is a pretty rare item that you're not going to see every day. So $20, and it's retailed probably. I mean, in Little Tokyo, they were like about $10 new. So $20 to 30, 40, $50 is not an unreasonable price for that. And they
Well,
still don't really sell. People just don't want them.
okay. Just because something is old or rare doesn't make it valuable. What
Yeah.
makes it valuable
Mm,
is supply and demand. Okay,
right.
that's what makes something valuable.
Right.
Okay, you can ask for whatever you want on
Mhm.
anything. It's whether someone's willing to pay that. Okay, that's the difference. That's with anything, with any
Yeah.
collector, anything in
Right.
life. Okay, it's all about what you're willing to pay for to get what you want. Okay,
Mhm.
if you have the money and the means, where money is no object, then you'll pay whatever you want, whatever the person wants. And people know this. People know that if you have money, they can charge you at the wazoo for it, and you'll pay it because you want it.
Yeah.
I have it. Now, there's a reason why rich people buy, collectibles, because they
Mhm.
know, hopefully they know that these things go up. That's why they buy art. They buy, things that are valuable. It's I mean, did you ever see that movie, Trading Places?
Yeah.
Okay, where there's a scene where Eddie Murphy drops a vase, and says, "Oh, this is mine, right?" And he drops the vase, and it breaks. And the brother said, "Yeah," and the brother said, "Oh, that vase was worth, $3,000." And he said,
Mhm.
"Oh yeah, that's a fake vase." That's and but I remember we insured it for $5,000. So he just made us a profit of $2,000. Okay,
Mhm.
so that is exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay, that you know, there's a difference between buying collectibles for to make it to hopefully go up in value and
Mhm.
buying a collectible because you want it, and it brings you joy.
Right.
Okay, and the what how much joy it brings you depends on how much money you are willing to spend to get that joy.
Right.
And I said it's all about supply and demand.
And
There's a
whoever said money can't buy you happiness was full of crap.
Well, money may not necessarily buy you happiness, but it sure doesn't hurt.
Well,
Okay.
also it may not buy you happiness directly.
This is what my father used to say to me when I was young. He always said, "Not having money sucks." Okay, it does. Not having
Yeah.
money sucks. You
So,
know,
so here's the darker half said. For some reason, Viz never reprinted that volume of Jormungand.
Well, you were okay. So he set the price. Okay,
Yeah.
I really pay $400 Australian. He knows that the seller knew that there was somebody out there willing to pay that much for that particular product. So he
Right.
knows that next time he comes across that product again, that's what he thinks it'll be worth. You know,
Right.
because when we buy something, we set the price. That's what Logan Paul is trying to do. He's trying to set the price. You know,
Exactly.
going,
Well,
he's willing to pay $500,000 for first appearance of One Piece. He's setting the price. You know,
so on the back of the darker halves thing, a few years ago, I got an Ultimate Muscle manga.
Mhm.
It was in a bargain box. I forgot whether I paid $1 or $3, but it was like significantly less than the cover price. So then I thought, oh great, I'll just get volumes 1 and 2. So for whatever reason, those are worth like, double digits. I think it was like 50, $90 to get volumes 1 and 2. But volume 3 is virtually worthless. So I'm like, well, I'll just enjoy volume 3 and I don't have to go back and read the whole thing.
but if you ever had the money to do it, you probably would have done it. If
Well, I had Logan Paul money,
if money was no object to you, you wouldn't think twice of getting volume
probably
one.
not. So Joe says, you don't know, a lot of Gen Z are at least partially literate in Korean and Japanese due to those countries' pop media, music, anime, VTuber, and visual novels.
But unfortunately, a lot of Gen Zs and Koreans are broke.
Unfortunately, a lot of Gen Z don't know how to speak or
Yeah, and
write or read in their native language.
again,
So,
they're not necessarily collectors. Okay, you know that
yeah,
you have to be a collector, and for anything to be worth anything, you got to be a collector. Okay, and if you're not collecting it, then it's worthless. Okay.
well, I'm not going to lie. I mean, in the 90s and 2000s, I was actually kind of fluent in reading katakana because I was, such a nerd. But Joe says there's also a growing American and European population in Japan and Korea. In Japan, there are literally millions of free homes available due to declining native population numbers.
Collect those.
There you go.
Collect Japanese homes. It's
Yeah.
probably a lot.
Go directly to jail. Don't pass go.
Again, I mean, it may take several generations for a collector's market to emerge.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, like I said, it took almost 20 years for the comic book market to emerge,
Yeah.
In America, because people weren't collecting comics for speculation. They were collecting comics because they enjoyed it. Okay.
Yeah.
And the same with manga. But the thing is that it's off to a rough start because people are already speculating on it. Okay. If there was a burgeoning manga collector's market, okay, we would have seen that already. Okay, because it's been around a long time. Okay, Viz started doing comics with Eclipse Comics, manga. People were already aware of manga back in the 80s. Okay, and there hasn't been a burgeoning, collector's market for Japanese, native language Japanese manga.
Yeah, but I think people just want more stuff, and they would rather, if they have the money, they would rather spend more dollars on more stuff than more dollars on one thing because somebody said it was very valuable.
Well, in the end, the thing is, collecting is a luxury hobby. You can't eat it. Okay, you can't live under it. Okay, it doesn't provide you companionship. Okay, what is a collectible? Collectible is a physical object that you look at. Okay. Now, sometimes it's meant to do other things, like toys are meant to be played with, and comics are meant to be read. Pokemon cards are meant to be played. Okay, just like Japanese manga are meant to be read. Okay, those are utilitarian uses for a particular item. Okay, what makes it valuable is supply and demand. Again, I come to that supply and demand.
Yeah.
Okay? If there's plentiful supply, okay, and low demand, prices are going to be negligible. If there's
Right.
high demand and low supply, then prices are going to be high.
Right.
Okay, and that's what it comes down to. Because in the end, what is a collectible? It's really a worthless piece of object, in the grand scheme of things. The only thing it provides is what its utilitarian use that it was intended for, and to bring people happiness.
Hmm.
If it doesn't fulfill those two criteria, then what is a collectible but a worthless piece of object?
Right.
That's just might as well be in a landfill. You
Right.
know, and in the end, this whole manga speculating thing comes down to whether people are willing, you know, to pay for that, to pay that kind of money, just to own the first appearance of a popular IP. And we haven't seen that more than once.
So
Okay,
this isn't really related to anything, which I've been doing a lot today, but I'm just throwing it out for conversation.
mhm.
So, Antarctic Press published Manga Z, right?
Okay, this is funny. My brother at a meeting once said nobody speculates on Antarctic Press comics.
Well, my
The thing is, people who buy our comics, they buy our comics because they want our comics, not because they're speculating on it.
well, let me put a lie to that for just a second. But so you guys you guys, I'm going to say we because I had a story in it. In Manga Z, right? Uh,
Mhm.
this the sales were, especially towards the end, they were not great, right?
Mhm. They weren't,
So
they weren't spectacular. Let's just say.
okay, so anyway, I got my comps for the hyperspeed story that was run in there over like 6 issues, and so I sorted them out, and I was since I had a pile for the writer, a pile for the artist, one for the letterer, and whatever's left for me. And it wasn't until I got a notice from the artist that I realized I never got comps for the last installment. And so he started looking. And I said, "Hey, I don't have any. I don't even have any issues that I bought to give you." So he was sending me these screen grabs off of eBay. Manga Z number 23. Someone's asking $22.98 for that.
Really? Why?
Manga Z number 22. Somebody's asking 18.99 for that. Scrolling down, and this somebody else is asking 23.90. They were asking 29.99 for Manga Z 22, but now they've reduced the price, and then the price goes down a little bit. Manga Z 21 was $10.44. They're all like double digit prices for later issues of Manga Z, and I'm like, what the hell? But I think what happened with the last issue is because I never even got anything. I think it got trapped in the diamond warehouse, and that's why the copies are so rare.
Who knows? Like I said, nobody orders Antarctic Press for speculation.
Well,
And
I am
that's
now. I
why
spend $30 to get my own freaking story.
that's why our print runs are as low as they are. It all depends on supply and demand. Like I said.
Well, also Joe's very frugal when it comes to the print run. Which get this now, get this one. Your Hunter from the Future, not the Fred Perry variant, just the standard garden variety cover of Your Number One, $55.99.
Oh, that's
Your
crazy, man.
number two, $20.99. Your cover, even your cover, $15.99. Fred's
Wow.
cover, yeah, Fred's cover, $100.98. And then they go down. They're all like double digits. Even the whatchamacallit, even the lower priced ones are, well, there's someone asking 4.90 and then like crazy shipping, but they're $33 for Your Number One. I'm like, what the hell? I mean, I got a box of these things. Maybe I should get on eBay or something.
Yeah, maybe we should just pay you in comps.
Always, I'll take it.
Hey, Joe Sao Tome says, I disagree. there's been a market since 2000s for Japanese language for the hell of it, but there was not any real market channels to acquire it until now. Well, I'm not going to disagree with Joe. There was a
Yeah.
market, but like I said, who determines the pricing? Okay, I mean, who determines? And if there was a collector's market, who's collecting it? Okay, I very rarely see, I see manga on eBay, Japanese language manga, but they don't go
Mhm.
for more than a couple of, maybe $10, $15, maybe $100, depending on what it is, and what's inside of it and the age. But the thing is that, a collector's market has to be organized and has to, have collectors who exchange information.
We're in the market to buy the thing.
If you're a
Well,
collector just for the sake of collecting, that's fine. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. I'm just saying, does it justify a 500,000 for a first appearance of One Piece? And will that create an all new market for people who are suddenly wanting to get in on collecting, just so that they can reap the rewards of such a large payback. So, we're talking different between collecting and speculating. Okay, what I contend is what Paul Logan is doing, speculating, and what you're contending is collecting. People who actually collect.
right. Well, we like again going back to the old. I mean, there were times like back in the '90s, even though it was kind of like a niche thing, there was still like manga and anime that like and that had. I mean, they had fans, but most of those fans were like dudes our age with our income, which means not rich but willing to spend the money if you really wanted it. Um, in the '90s, we were like what in our late 20s to mid 30s ish, so thereabouts. And so, and you'd go to a Comic Con, and there'd be like places like Kimono My House or Books Nippon or Book Off wasn't here yet, but places like that that specialize in vintage manga, but especially the toys, videotapes, things like that. And I don't remember like on the higher end, like uh, if somebody had like a Shonen Jump issue, did Yurusei Yatsura run in Shonen Jump or did it run in?
No, Shonen, USA yesterday read in another magazine. It wasn't shonen.
Okay, but like I would occasionally I would see like those on a wall, at a premium price, but I don't remember them even scratching the bottom of $100. It'd be like $60 for the original Japanese or printing of whatever. And the really toppity top stuff, the things like Akira, I never saw it go for more than maybe like $100 here in the
Well,
States.
that's the thing. Okay, if this speculation market suddenly were to bloom into a collector's market,
Mhm.
people may start collecting first appearances of Lupin the Third, of Akira, of Urusei Yatsura or Rama Half, Mazinger Z,
Right.
things like that, things that actually have had a long, Space Cruiser Yamato, Captain Harlock,
Mhm.
there could be a explosion of people speculating on first appearances of popular manga characters. Oh, hey, Steve, here's your favorite person in.
You know what? Larry's in the house. Welcome, Larry.
Hey, Larry.
Larry says manga will take over the grading scene. First appearance of mage characters will and now are worth money. Naomi Comics says Larry. What?
Mage?
Huh?
He's talking about Komiko Mage.
Okay. What is that?
There's a character in Komiko from the Komiko comic group called Mage.
Oh, those. Yeah. Okay.
So he's talking about some sort of manga character.
I never heard it pronounced Yes, I have heard it pronounced Komiko. Okay. Here's a quick rundown. Nabi Comic says if it can be in a slab, it can be graded. I have a story for that. Thank you, Larry, respectfully. Joe says, "Oh, by paying $500,000, that drives up the perception of value." If the perceived value of other manga goes up as well, he can donate, either sell his for a profit or donate it for a tax dodge. Probably the tax dodge.
I'd probably a tax dodge.
Nervo Violin 5090 said, did anyone keep track of the rise in price and demand for first prints of Dr. Slump after Akira Toriyama's death? It jumped like crazy and had completed sales in the hundreds of dollars.
Wow.
Niobe says, now, damn it, Larry, do you think you could run things through a spell check? Now Mange will have an even bigger influx as collectors will now get in the game. Manga,
Right.
meaning manga, manga. It's manga, not mage. Just bad
Yeah.
typing. No
Yes, yes.
kidding.
Gotcha.
Oh.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense now. Okay.
Okay. Larry, I say this without irony or sarcasm. We do love you. Oh, and Ben, I sent you my address. Joe,
Yeah, I'm
plus
supposed to say I didn't have his address, so I needed his address and comps.
Yeah. Joe says, plus wealthy people like to brag. Looky what I paid a ridiculous amount just because I'm wealthy enough to throw away money. That's true.
Money laundering, I tell you.
If we were all smart, which we are not, we would all do manga.
Well, honestly, I would love to collect manga, but the thing is, where do I get it?
Where do you get it? Where do you put it?
I go to a Comic-Con. You know how many people sell manga in Japanese manga? Maybe one if I'm lucky, and that's if I go to like an anime convention. For the most part, I will go to every 10 convention I go to, maybe one person will be selling Japanese language manga. So how do we even begin to attempt to collect something like that? Is it only for the purview of rich people now? Only people who have vast amounts of money can collect, first appearances of manga. So see, then it becomes a wealthy sort of like who collect Ming vases or fine art. Yes, I collect manga now. Look,
yes,
that's the first piece. I paid $650,000 for that. I mean,
again, I don't think the vintage old shit will ever be that valuable. I think it's going to be the stuff that's hot now. It's like, oh, I have a Bleach print oh, I have this I don't know what the kids are into these days. Juju Tyson. Okay, so Larry says, oh, I am running every sentence I type through a check. I think it's clear what I'm trying to say.
Yes, we get it, Larry. Thank you.
Not to collect, I mean make. Switch from the style we do to full-on manga style. Correct, that's what it is. Look at Logan Paul. It's all influencer ran. There you go.
I agree with you, Larry.
I agree with you. I have nothing to add to that.
Nothing wrong with that. So we'll have to wait and see what time will tell. Okay, my personal belief is that yes, there will be a manga collecting crowd. Okay,
of posers,
and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, you collect whatever you collect whatever floats your boat.
Yeah.
Okay, whether it's good for speculation, that remains to be seen. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a fad, just like tulips were, just like Beanie Babies were, just like
jelly cats are,
just like any NFTs were. People are in the FOMO stage, and right now it has to play itself out. Okay, when I see another sale of one piece that's higher, then that's a pretty high threshold. $550,000. Yeah. Okay, if it breaks threshold, okay, we see a second sale, all right, maybe there's something there. Okay, if we start seeing sales of other manga, like maybe the first appearance of, like I said, Lupin III, first appearance of Captain Harlock, first appearance of Mazinger Z, first appearance of Tetsujin 28, first appearance of Astro Boy, first appearance of Kamen Rider,
that's the thing. None of that stuff is going to jump up in price or value.
Well,
I could get a cheap
that
copy.
remains to be seen. We haven't seen that yet. Okay, if we start seeing sales of popular anime, let's say first appearance of Sailor Moon, pops out for $100,000. Okay, maybe something is starting to percolate.
You
Okay.
might see that for Demon Hunter, but you will never see that for Kamen Rider. I can promise you that. So Larry says, sure, it will be a fad, but it is going to be the fad for the next 10 years.
Oh,
All
that's
that
very
stuff will jump. Watch, Pandora's box has been opened.
yes, I agree with that. There, Pandora's box has been open. Okay, whether or not it can sustain itself, we'll see.
Where
Okay.
were all you guys 2 hours ago when we were just talking amongst ourselves? Nero Violin says, what about money? Anyone know what the first Dragon Ball or Dragon Z is going for? Well, he did buy the first Dragon
He
Ball
did buy the first Dragon Ball apparently for
about the same price. Yeah.
about the same price. Yep, $500,000.
Yeah.
So that's so he spent collectively $1 million on 2 first appearances.
I wonder if he did that just in time to claim it on his taxes.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
First Goku was $500,000. Okay.
We discussed it. Well, anyway, I think we pretty much have gone through everything. So I'm going to wrap things up. Before we go, I'd like to do one more plug for the Tomorrow Man Kickstarter, if that's okay with everyone.
Yes. Everyone back this thing because I like the guy who's behind the scenes, and Alessio was a good guy. We were going to do a Star Crash comic together, and then I decided it would be financial suicide. So, or unaliving, as YouTube likes to say. Neuroviolin says First English Sailor Moon is actually worth quite a lot. Same with First English Astro Boy. These manga are worth more than most comics. Okay.
Well,
you know what's going to be worth more than most comics is
I have no doubt, but I want to see some. I mean, at least we have published, reports, actual sales on eBay that we can record, things like that to prove that these things actually are going for that, And if, where is there a price guide? Who determines the prices? Right now it's just whatever people are willing to pay for it. And some individual has, crap ton of money buy the first appearance, then how do we set the price at that? If one person pays X number of dollars for a particular thing with no other person buying it for that much, then is that the set price? Who knows?
Somebody should make an AI slop price guide for manga and put it on Amazon just to screw with the market.
All right, we're gonna do for those who are not aware. I have a new Kickstarter going with Alicia Nasserino, who's doing the Return of Tomorrow Man. Here's the video.
Hello, friends. I'm Tomorrow Man, the greatest superhero of all time, from the pages of Ninja High School. Now he returns, as he faces his greatest challenge ever, the one known as Mistero. Is he friend or foe? Find out in this 80-page, all-new graphic novel. Created by Ben Dunn. Story and art by Alessio Nocerino. Be a backer today.
All right. Hopefully you'll be a backer.
No. Scroll down, show the artwork. It's beautiful.
All right. Here's some stuff for the artwork. There's a piece by John Charles, who happens to be the colorist for 2000 AD.
He's very active in the UK, very good art colorist.
Here's some full pages from the actual book.
A lot of fighting, a lot of lightning bolts, and more fighting. And you know what? On this page,
you like that extreme comics from
the Look at
this
that.
Is a return to classic kick-ass superheroes who fought evil and took names. All right, and here's a free poster. If we meet the stretch goal of 5,000, let's make that stretch goal. We're nearly halfway there. Yeah, by Kelsey Shannon.
Living on a prayer.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks everyone for joining in. We appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see you next week with another interesting topic And until next time, this has been Dunn and Steve Ross signing off. Wow.